I'm very excited. Oh my gosh. And I'm ready. I want you to think about all of the decisions that you make in a day, starting from the beginning. You're in bed. You choose to open your eyes. You choose to wiggle your toes. You choose to roll over and hit snooze for 5 more minutes. So many decisions before we even get out of bed in the morning. Now consider that you're not just an individual, but a community of trillions of living beings called cells, the lives of which are incredibly diverse, ranging from long to short-lived, from incredibly dynamic to relatively mundane. But what they all have in common is that they're decision-making machines. Your bodies are composed of hundreds of cell types, each with a different purpose, and those purposes are really important for making sure that we're properly built and we stay alive. A neuron's gonna have a really different function than a muscle cell or a sperm cell. How is this all established? How do they know what to do from moment to moment? To be a lean, mean decision-making machine, it turns out you have to have logic. You have to have a way of sort of sensing and interpreting your environment and using that information to make a choice. And so how does a cell do that? It's not like they have radio antenna, right? Wrong. Turns out that they do have something like a radio antenna, and we call it a primary cilium. So I put in those little parentheses to make them look like antenna, but those colored things are these antenna on the cells. They look like a finger. You probably never heard of them before. I didn't until my second year of grad school. And this is what a cell looked like in my biology textbook in high school. You might remember that. You'll see no cilia in sight. So I stand before you, a cilia evangelist, excited to describe some of the ways that our cells use cilia to make good choices. And so cilia were first observed way long time ago when people used to dress like this in the 1600s by this guy named Antony van Leeuwenhoek. I hope I said that right. And they were looking at some pond water on their microscope, and they saw what we now know are protists, these single-celled organisms, and some of them had cilia. And we know cilia are very evolutionarily ancient because they're all over the tree of life. And so we know that the ancestor from which plants and animals like us descend from probably use cilia to move around and make decisions on. So that's cool for protists, but how does that relate to humans? Well, it starts with some of the earliest decisions that a cell makes, like what kind of cell to be. We all start off as a single cell with the potential to become a well-organized multicellular organism. For us, that usually means 5 fingers and toes, but when cilia don't work, and for example, in diseases that are caused by broken cilia, we end up with more than 1 or more than 5 fingers and toes. And in some cases, we end up with an inversion of our organ placement with a sort of mirror image, and our heart ends up, for example, on the right side instead of the left side. Cilia are also important for keeping us healthy as adults. These cells that line our airway make hundreds of cilia that move mucus down our airway, and that kind of acts as a glue trap for pathogens like COVID and the seasonal flu. And so another example of a ciliopathy, or a disease caused by broken cilia, is polycystic kidney disease. That's when your kidneys make these really deadly cysts or pockets of fluid. And we don't understand how cilia are involved yet exactly, but we do know that they are involved in preventing this deadly cyst formation. It's an active area of research. We're also seeing each other right now. You're seeing me and I'm seeing you through cilia, a very weirdly shaped, unique one that looks like a stack of shelves. And in those shelves are these light-sensing tiny machines that tell our brain, hey, look, stuff. And this is the time of the year of lovely smells coming from the kitchen, and so you have cilia to thank for that too. When fresh cookies come out of the oven, there are these pleasurable scents in the air that travel up into your nose until it reaches cilia that your olfactory cells use to tell your brain something smells good. Another example of cilia is the sperm tail. And so Cilia are helping sperm to physically move towards an egg during fertilization. And so these ciliopathies, these diseases caused by broken cilia, can cause male infertility because the swimmers are broken. And a really exciting new area of research in cilia biology is in the brain. We know that our neurons are all ciliated, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface of everything that our brain is using cilia for, all the decisions that our brain is using cilia for. And one very exciting example that we have now is our choice of when to eat food. So cilia are involved in helping us know when we should be eating, and you can see here an example of two mice, siblings. One has a ciliopathy and the other doesn't, and you can probably tell which one. And so we anyone experience jet lag? You have cilia to thank for jet lag too when you're traveling. That might be a function of cilia that we could do without, but circadian rhythm, or the internal clock that tells us when we should be going to sleep or waking up, is regulated by cilia in our brains. And so when you get rid of those cilia in mice, they actually become immune to jet lag. Wouldn't that be nice? And there's diseases that we now are recharacterizing as ciliopathies, and one example is Parkinson's, which, when it's caused by broken cilia, prevents certain neurons from talking to each other and telling them to stay alive. And so some important dopaminergic neurons die, and we get Parkinson's as a result. So I've shared with you a few examples of how cilia make important choices for us. And that's just scratching the surface of all the decisions that go into keeping you alive every day. So I just want you to remember the next time you're regretting a decision that you made, that you wouldn't even exist if it weren't for a lot of really good choices, some of which you have cilia to thank for.